Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. It's so wonderful to be here together with my colleague, full-time colleague, Cantor Isaac Sonnet Asor, our new assistant cantor, and believe it or not, even though he's been with us for so many wonderful Shabbatot, this is his first one on the Bima since officially joining our clergy team, and we are so grateful to have him here with us at Westchester Reformed Temple today and every day. We're also joined on the Bima by our wonderful temple president, Warren Haber. Thanks, Warren, for being with us as always. And our wonderful pianist this evening, Madeline Rubenstein. Thank you for lifting our worship with your beautiful music. We are celebrating Summer Shabbat, and we will have, as we do on these summer weeks, a little later in our service, some very special words from a congregant, Erin Resco, which we're very excited to hear, even if she's a little nervous to share them. And we are also celebrating the end of our book of Numbers in the Torah, and so we will have a few moments acknowledging that closing of one book and opening of another. In order to fully celebrate Cantor Sonnet... They're not here. Okay, Cantor Sonnet Asor is going to have the honor of lighting our Shabbat candles this evening to officially make holy this new beginning with us.
My parents are watching on Zoom, I believe, and so I'm gonna
Hi, parents.
light in their stead. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Just as these Shabbat lights give us light and warmth, we hope that you, Cantor Sonnet Asor, will bring that light to us as you lead our congregation. We're going to continue our service on page 130 with the Psalms that help us welcome Shabbat, get ourselves warmed up and ready to welcome the Shabbat bride, L'chu Neranana.
Nari, continue on page 138. Lecha Dodi.
Lecha
Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Ekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat.
Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishnianu el hamuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela.
Likrat Shabbat, Lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor habracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof maaseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat,
Nekabela. Verse 5. Hitoreri, kiva orech, kumi uri, shir daveri kevod Adonai, alayich nigdal.
Lecha Dodi,
Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha
Dodi,
Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela.
Boi v'shalom, Ateret ba'ala, Gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, Toch emunei am zegula, Boi chala, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala,
B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela.
Lecha Dodi,
Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela.
We continue page 146 with our call to prayer, Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. You can be seated for a moment. So, this week marks an unusual anniversary. It's a year since NASA first released images taken by the James Webb Space Telescope. And this past Wednesday in my inbox, there were images that were presented of this new closest star-forming region called Rho Ophiuchi. This is the closest region to Earth. And Dr. Jane Rigby, who is the telescope's senior scientist, I love this, describes the project with an elevator pitch. We're going to show you the baby pictures of the universe. I couldn't get that phrase out of my mind, and I couldn't stop looking at this picture, which you can find all over the internet. And Katrina Miller, the science reporter for the New York Times, these are her words describing the image. Ro Ophiuchi, the closest nursery of infant stars in our cosmic backyard, located a mere 390 light years away from Earth, this cloud complex is chock full of stellar goodness. Near the center of the image is a mature star called S1, its starlight illuminating the wispy yellow nebula around it. Toward the upper right are streaming red jets of molecular hydrogen, material that gets spewed out on either side of forming protostars. Black shadows near these regions are accretion disks of swirling gas and dust, some of which could be in the process of creating planetary systems. Just an amazing way of talking about stars. It's better to see it yourself. I was especially touched by the article's comments, which is unusual for an internet comment board. This is the telescope for humanity. Science at its best elevates us all, a frail, complicated species, inhabiting a tiny blue dot in an infinitely vast cosmos, truly, truly awe-inspiring, truly uplifting. And one other. JWST, the James Webb Telescope, images are mind-blowing. I wonder how many people have looked at them and wondered if they were seeing God in the images. I feel that what we're seeing is all amazing, humbling, terrifyingly beautiful, and unimaginable. They are gifts that stretch our capacity for appreciation. I think of this image in reading our prayer for the coming of evening. Blessed are you, limitless God, ruler of the universe, who arranges the stars in their heavenly courses. And for me, Jewish prayer, Jewish living, is holding a thread between this prayer for creation and the following page, the prayer for gratitude for holy love. And for all of us to be a Jew, to be in holy community, is to wonder at the vastness of the universe and to remember that the creator of that universe is in relationship with each creature. And our task is to carefully hold both ends of the thread, to allow ourselves to be filled with awe and humility while fully recognizing our significance. We continue Ahavat Olam, Everlasting Love, page 150.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Ki hein chayenu, ve'ol
Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvchol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim haele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
Page 158. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you? וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. A poem by Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg. A prayer for the journey. We could say it every day when we first leave the soft warmth of our beds, and we don't know for sure if we'll return at night. When we get in the trains, planes, and automobiles and put our lives in the hands of many strangers. Or when we leave our homes for a day, a week, a month, or more, will we return to a peaceful home, untouched by fire, flood, or crime? How will our travels change us? What gives us the courage to go through that door? A prayer for the journey. for the journey we take in this fragile vessel of flesh. A finite number of years, and we will reach the unknown, where it all began. Every life, every day, every hour is a journey. In the travel is the discovery, the wisdom, the joy. Every life, every day, every hour is a journey. In the travel is the reward, the peace, the blessing. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim l'chaim ufros alenu sukat shlomecha ufros alenu sukat shlomecha hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim l'chaim May you shelter us in peace until the morning comes. May you lay us down with love and may you raise us up. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim l'chaim. We rise in body or in spirit for our Amidah prayer, page 164. Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid, tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We now take a few moments either with the words of the prayer book through page 180 or with the words of our hearts for some private prayer. When you are finished, you may be seated. Israel As I mentioned near the beginning of our service, our summers are very special here at Westchester Reformed Temple because we invite lay leaders to share their words of Torah with our congregation. And so I am going to give you all an introduction to our very special Darshanit this evening. Erin Resco is a pediatric critical care physician at Maria Ferreri Children's Hospital at Westchester Medical Center. She specializes in treating children and young adults in the most acute medical situations and prides herself not only on providing life-saving intervention, but also facilitating dignified and respectful end-of-life care when necessary. In addition to her clinical responsibilities, she is also a passionate educator and mentor to the next generation of doctors. She teaches medical students, residents, and fellows, both in the hospital and through experiential learning, and in the classroom through state-of-the-art medical simulation. Erin, her husband Rob, and their 3 young children, Ellie, Tripp, and Leah, moved to Scarsdale 5 years ago and have been members of Westchester Reformed Temple for 3 years. She and her family are active participants in sharing Shabbat and love to take advantage of so many of the other programs WRT has to offer. And so now we welcome Dr. Erin Resco to share her words of Torah. Right into the mic.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for being here with me tonight. This was not an easy Devar Torah for me to write. In fact, my initial reaction when I read the Parsha was, this must be a joke. Bear with me as I explain why. This week's Parsha is actually 2, Matot and Maseh, which comprise the last several chapters in the book of Numbers. As soon as I could, I dove into the passages, excited to start. Then I read the first chapter. I'll summarize as follows. Codified sexism. No, thank you. I shared my initial thoughts with my husband, Rob, who was confused, so I gave him a slightly longer summary. He laughed and said, please do not turn your Devar Torah into a 10-minute feminist diatribe. I won't do that, but it would be dishonest to say that this didn't speak to me, although probably not in the way Rabbi Blake meant it in the instructions for this speech. I could go on for 10 minutes on how sexist teachings and practices are one of the reasons I initially rejected Judaism, really all organized religions, for most of my life. Since I have returned to practicing my Judaism, albeit reluctantly at first, I've learned to appreciate that 2,000 years ago things were different. And while I have a better understanding of the goals the original rabbis set out to achieve, I will strongly argue with anyone who will listen that we don't do enough to sit with the discomfort they've caused, to acknowledge how wrong these ideas were, and the harm they did and sometimes still do. I am, however, extremely grateful that I am living now, in this time, in this place. I also acknowledge that we have further to go, and for all the incredible progress we have made, women have not achieved true equality in either the secular or the Jewish world. I could go on about this topic, as Rob alluded to, but I wanted to find something to speak about that made me proud to be Jewish, that made me feel more at peace with the world around me rather than more at odds with it. So on I read. I'll summarize the 2nd and 3rd chapters in Matot as follows. Moses commits war crimes, which may or may not meet criteria for genocide, and God throws a temper tantrum. Needless to say, they got the joke. I did not find anything in these 2 chapters that spoke to me positively either. I felt deflated. How was I going to find something to speak to you about tonight that was both authentically Jewish and, more importantly, authentically me? This has been my eternal struggle. How do I reconcile who I am with who I am supposed to be according to the Jewish tradition? On this first day, I didn't know. I was born and raised Jewish, attended High Holy Day services every year, went to Sunday and Hebrew school, had Shabbat dinner every Friday with family, and became bat mitzvah. But I'm not sure I ever felt Jewish. Somewhere along the way, I started questioning things, but never actually asked any of those questions, at least that I can remember. I had experiences that were momentous and life-changing for me that directed me away from my tradition rather than towards it. Because of this, I actively moved further and further away from even calling myself a Jew. Why would I? I hated what it represented to me, and I didn't believe in God. Judaism to me represented blind obedience, sexism, inflexibility, and judgment. I never felt like being good was good enough, or being me was good enough. I never did it right, and I didn't belong. So I stopped trying to. Fast forward to my daughter Ellie, asking me incredibly insightful questions about God that I had no way of answering. Rob and I decided that she needed an opportunity to ask the questions that we never had, as he had experienced similar issues growing up in the Catholic faith. I was deeply uncomfortable with the idea of her getting a formal religious education. I did, and still do, strongly disagree with much of what is written in our text and how it has been interpreted. As an independent woman and mother to 2 independent daughters and a son we're raising to treat women with dignity and kindness, I was worried about her being exposed to the sexism and misogyny that defined part of my childhood and much of my extended family's lives, even today. In addition, I struggled daily with the intersection of religion and science, which you so beautifully alluded to, by the way. I have always given much more credence to the latter and wanted my children to as well. Rob says that I worship at the altar of science. I can't disagree. Especially in this current climate, how then could I send my children to school to learn about creation and an image of God that goes against everything I believed, everything that I know to be true and can support with evidence? I decided to give it a chance, but I was always looking for any excuse to pull her out and call the experiment a failure. Clearly, it wasn't. I now study our text formally twice a week at WRT, and informally, Rob and I talk to each other regularly about how we see Judaism acting in our lives. By Saturday, I'm counting the minutes until sharing Shabbat adult study begins, and I get anxious if it starts late. I make coffee dates with clergy to discuss these topics further. I am still typically the contrarian of the group, always making a more critical interpretation, and I had struggled until recently with feeling Jewish because of it, so I was nervous to stand here in front of you today. I read and reread, hoping I'd miss something brilliant that I could discuss. I Googled the portions, wondering if I'd interpreted them incorrectly, and I went to some of the sources Rabbi Blake included in the email to see what other people thought. There were brilliant divrei Torah, but certainly nothing that felt like me, except a well-done, not quite feminist diatribe. I decided to take a break and come back to it. After all, I would be assigned a clergy member with whom to work. I couldn't wait to find out who so that I could reach out. And that is what spoke to me. Yes, I rolled my eyes when I read the portion, and yes, my initial thoughts were, well, this is going to be tough. And yes, I'd wondered if they'd made a mistake in asking me. But yes, I wanted to study this more. I wanted to ask questions and to discuss, and I knew in my heart that the clergy member responsible for turning my dislike, disdain, and even anger into a meaningful Devar Torah would welcome the opportunity. They would assure me that what I read, interpreted, and felt from the Parsha was valid and worthwhile to discuss. They might challenge me to look in other directions or from other perspectives, but they would enjoy our conversations as much as I did. They wouldn't judge me. They wouldn't say I wasn't Jewish, that I didn't belong. They knew me, and they accepted me, the authentic version of me, and they always had. In the years since we joined WRT, I've sought support from each of our clergy and many of you listening tonight as I struggled with my identity as a Jew. Was I one? Did I want to be one? Did I believe in any of this, and did I like what it meant to me? Each of you responded with kindness, empathy, and acceptance. Of course you are Jewish, but how you practice or experience your Judaism is up to you. I didn't know what that meant until now. Because if I didn't believe in anything, how could I call myself anything? Or belong to a community based in that which I do not subscribe? But through the process of planning, worrying about writing, and actually writing this Devar Torah, I've realized that I am authentically Jewish. Because as many of our brilliant clergy have said, Judaism is about being part of the conversation. So I thought back to the first time I met Rabbi Blake when we were getting to know each other. I shared my thoughts with him on the story of Balaam and his talking donkey. It's ridiculous. He smiled knowingly and acknowledged my perspective with ease, simply adding, questioning is very Jewish. I didn't believe him at the time. I reflected on the moment early on when I heard Rabbi Reeser teach my daughter Ellie that the Micha Mocha was a prayer we say when something makes us say wow. Each week, as an illustration, he brought 3 science facts that made him say wow. I was genuinely surprised and amazed at his way of bringing in the reality of the physical world around us, one that means so much to me, into the Jewish tradition I was born into but resisting. I was deeply moved. I considered a recent lesson from Cantor Kleinman on approaching difficult Jewish texts, and most importantly, I acknowledged to myself that I was invited to share my thoughts here with you, with no stipulations on what I could or couldn't say. Our clergy team wanted to hear my thoughts, and they thought you might too. All of these moments and many, many more led me here to the Bima tonight. I am standing here today because I am choosing to be part of the conversation. I am welcome here no matter how worried I am that I won't be. A Jew, accepted as she is, one that is good enough no matter how much fear I have that I am not. In exploring this Torah portion, what I ultimately found was self-acceptance. I never needed to seek yours because I'd had it all along. I am a better version of myself for having wrestled with this passage, and isn't that the whole point? I will leave you with a quote from Rabbi Blake that brings me great appreciation of our past, gratitude for our present, and excitement for our future. We can be makers of midrash. The text isn't the end, it's just the beginning. Maybe our future sages will teach young learners searching for their own Jewish identity the story of the Jewish woman who wandered the spiritual desert for almost 40 years before realizing that she was in the promised land the whole time. She was always welcome to join the conversation. All she needed was to learn to trust her own voice. Shabbat shalom.
Yasher koach, Aaron, really. May we now offer a prayer for all those in our extended community who continue to wrestle with illness, that our love and thought may strengthen them in their struggle. If you are holding a loved one in your heart this evening, we invite you to please rise and share their name with our community at this time. Our WRT family, extends our wishes of comfort and strength to Binyamin ben Reuven, Jennifer Leventhal, Jeffrey Millman, Malka Gila Batbina, Emerson Lorenzoni, Mindel Shana Batsura Leah, Mitchell Lieberman, Gloria Byron, Alan Kramer, Stephen Gilberg, Yochanan ben Sipora, Judy Balsam, Ilana bat Shmuel, Chaya Faiga bat Leah, Leah bat Nina bat Binyamin, Rachel Brocha, Tony and Gina Delapa, Matthew Atwood, Anthony and Elizabeth Dankner, Deborah Kapnick, Nicole Shusi, Andrew Goldstein, Chava Batsara, Eliyahu Chaim ben Fredel, Sheila Fried, Malka Tzipora bas Rachel, Tamar bat Malka, Deborah Greenfield, Leonore Galen Mendelson, Elka Miriam bat Vega, Jenny Kaufman, Sophia Shankler, Theo Halpert Hearn, Pradeep Ramamurthy, Zachary Morant, Yitzchak ben Sara, Heschel Meir ben David Achana. We keep in our hearts as well all those suffering from flooding in Vermont and in New York, from extreme heat throughout the West and South, from tornadoes in Illinois and Kansas. The words of our Misha Berach can be found on page 371 in your prayer book. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBeracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBeracha Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. We continue now with prayers of healing for our world. Aleinu L'Shabeach, page 586. The congregation is invited to rise. Aleinu L'Shabeach La'adon HaKol, Lateit Gedula Le'yotzer Bereshit, Shelo Asanu K'goyei Haratzot, Velo Samanu K'mishpechot Ha'adama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, Ve'goraleinu Kechol Hamodam, V'anachnu koreim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
We now share a moment of memory to remember those loved ones whom we have loved and lost, who helped us feel like we were part of the conversation and like they themselves were part of the conversation of our lives. We invite the mourners to rise in the following order. If you have laid to rest a loved one within the last 7 days, would you please rise? If you have laid a loved one to rest in the last 30 days in the period of Shloshim, would you please rise? If you have laid a loved one to rest within the last year, would you please rise? And if this Shabbat commemorates the yahrzeit of your loved one, would you please rise? The entire congregation now rises in empathy and fellowship as we remember those whom we have lost from our WRT community in recent days. Alfred Fields, husband of Devorah Fields and father of Ephraim Fields and Lisa Fields Lewis. Carol Bacon, mother of Scott Bacon and grandmother of Rabbi Sasha Bacon. David Milberg, brother of Daniel Milberg. Ruth Legum, mother of Blaine Levinson. Tatum Cohen, cousin of Barbara Pollard Stein. Hope Byers, sister of Charlotte Siegel and aunt of Jonathan Siegel and Lisa Pachetta. And we also remember those whose yahrzeit falls on this Shabbat. Jonathan Simon Austin, Doris Lou Beck, Marvin Breyer, Carol Brett Schneider, Max Citron, Paul Coburn, Rena Doré, Jerome Dagan, Israel Michael Diesenhaus, Tobet Doroshow, Murray Ellman, John Simon, Eric Finkelstein, Adeline Fishman, Joseph Giselle, Peter Bradley Gilman, Louis Gingold, Sam Glazer, Marvin D. Kenigsberg, Betty B. Kessler, Philip Kleinman, Anita Serper, Jesse Kupferberg, Betty Landis, William I. Leffler, Lawrence Levine, Julius Lewin, Muriel Liebman, Edna Mayers, Jean Menlo, Isabel Moros, Romulo Mungia, Melvin Nelson, Matthew Adam Petashek, Stephen L. Ross, Jacques Rossano, Joseph Rubens, Billy Safian, Isaac Schreier, Elaine Schwartz, Murray Shapiro, Maxwell Schmerler, George Smilo, David Smith, Seymour Solomon, Milton Starts, Max Wallace, Julia Weinberg, and Charlotte Wolk. If there are any names that I did not recite that you would like to commemorate, or if I have inadvertently mispronounced your loved one's name, please feel free to share it aloud at this time. We join together in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom,
We'd now like to invite up our wonderful temple president, Warren Haber, to share some announcements.
Thank you, Cantors. I'd like to thank our greeters this evening, BK Mungia and John Mark. Also wanted to mention, for those of you who are not aware, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Torah study as usual. And mark your calendars for August 9th, which is Summer Stage, which we're collaborating with at Kol Ami. So we'd love to see you there. Shabbat Shalom.
We'll conclude our service this evening with a musical expansion of these traditional words recited upon completion of a book of Torah. 4 down, 1 to go. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Strong, strong may we strengthen one another. Congregation is invited to rise.
We'll now join together in sanctifying this Shabbat through the sweetness of our Kiddush. Probably grape juice is my guess for this evening. Cantor.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'b'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. אמן. חיים.
Was I right? Was it juice?
Oh, it's good.
If you feel comfortable putting your arms around the folks who are near you, please do so as we bless our challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone.